The air in the presidential palace of Ouagadougou, Burkina Faso's bustling capital, carried a weight of history and ambition. Ibrahim Traoré, once a laborer's son who toiled in the dust-choked tunnels of the Blue Diamond mine, now stood at the head of a polished mahogany table, his military uniform crisp, his posture unyielding. The meeting hall, adorned with intricate wood carvings and vibrant tapestries depicting Burkina Faso's cultural heritage, was a stark contrast to the gritty minds of his youth. Seated before him were representatives from some of the world's most powerful mining conglomerates, Atlantis Mining, Dragon Minerals, Liberty Resources, each vying for control of the Blue Diamond mine, a resource that held not just sparkling gems but a treasure far more valuable in the modern age, lithium. Charles LeBlanc, the sharp-eyed CEO of Atlantis Mining, leaned forward, his face flushed with the confidence of a man accustomed to getting his way. Mr. President, Atlantis Mining offers $1.2 billion in cash and a 20-year technology transfer to your country for the Blue Diamond mine, he said, his French accent clipped and precise. This is a generous offer, with significant diplomatic and economic benefits. Burkina Faso, with all due respect, lacks the expertise to manage such a complex operation independently. Traoré's lips curved into a faint smile, his dark eyes steady and unreadable. He adjusted the folder on the podium before him, its pages brimming with data his team had meticulously compiled over years. "You're mistaken, Mr. LeBlanc," he said, his voice calm but carrying the weight of unshakable conviction. For the past 2 years, Burkina Faso Technical University has trained over 200 mining and geology engineers. Our lithium processing plant is already under construction, and we expect it to be operational within months. The room stirred. LeBlanc's flush deepened, a mix of surprise and irritation flickering across his face. Louis Wei, the representative from Dragon Minerals, shifted in his seat, his expression guarded. "Mr. President, perhaps you're moving too quickly," he said, his tone measured but laced with urgency. "Our offer, $1.4 billion and $200 million for local worker training, deserves reconsideration. Your country's infrastructure may not yet support such ambitious plans." Traoré's gaze shifted to Wei, unflinching. "Your offer, Mr. Wei, represents less than 5% of the mine's true value," he said, his voice cutting through the room like a blade. "The lithium reserves at Blue Diamond account for roughly 15% of the world's known supply. This is a resource worth at least $50 billion, gentlemen. A reality you all thought you could keep from us." Robert Wilson, the American CEO of Liberty Resources, paled visibly, his fingers tightening around the pen in his hand. "That's impossible," he stammered, his voice betraying a crack of uncertainty. "Not impossible, Mr. Wilson," Traoré replied, his tone steady. "Just a truth you assumed only you understood." He opened the folder, revealing charts, geological surveys, and financial projections. "Here is our counteroffer. The operating rights to the Blue Diamond mine will remain with Burkina Faso. We are, however, open to international partnerships for processing and marketing, under terms that prioritize our nation's sovereignty and prosperity." The press corps in the room, a mix of local and international journalists, scribbled furiously, their pens racing to capture the audacity of Traoré's words. This was no ordinary negotiation. It was a declaration of intent, a seismic shift in the balance of power. Outside the palace, Burkina Faso's military had already secured the mine, disarming Atlantis Mining's private security forces in a swift, bloodless operation. The news rippled through the room, amplifying the tension. That afternoon, the international response was swift and predictable. The French Foreign Ministry issued a statement condemning Burkina Faso's actions as an unacceptable act of nationalization and hinted at economic sanctions. The U.S. State Department was equally critical, with a spokesperson declaring, "Burkina Faso's unilateral decision undermines global investment security. We are exploring all legal avenues to protect American interests." China, ever cautious, struck a more diplomatic tone. "We urge all parties to seek resolution through dialogue." Inside the palace, Traoré convened an emergency cabinet meeting. Finance Minister Amina Konate's face was etched with worry as she delivered her report. The French have frozen our accounts in their banks, she said, her voice tight. The IMF and World Bank have suspended our loans. Our foreign exchange reserves are dangerously low. As expected, Traoré said, his calm unshaken. Activate Plan B, execute the agreements we signed with Russia and Iran. Request the first lithium payment in gold. Foreign Minister Moussa Traoré, no relation to the president, nodded. We're receiving messages of support from the African Union. Mali, Niger, and Guinea have publicly endorsed our decision. The BRICS nations are also signaling interest in collaboration. Traoré leaned back in his chair, his fingers steepled. We must speak to our people, he said. I'll address the nation tonight. That evening, the streets of Ouagadougou were quiet, the air thick with anticipation as families gathered around televisions and radios. Traoré appeared on screen, his military uniform replaced by a simple, traditional boubou, a nod to his roots. His voice was steady, resolute, yet warm, as if speaking to each citizen individually. My dear people, he began, today, we have turned a new page in our nation's history. The blue diamond mine is now fully ours. For decades, they hid its true value from us, showing us only the diamonds while concealing the lithium beneath, lithium that powers the world's future. He held up a small, shimmering blue diamond, its facets catching the studio lights. This belonged to my father, Amara Traoré, who died in that mine when I was a boy. In his memory, and in honor of thousands of Burkinabe workers like him, we have reclaimed our resources. Difficult days lie ahead. The West will pressure us. Prices may rise. Some goods may grow scarce. But freedom has a cost, and together, we are ready to pay it. The broadcast ended, and the streets erupted. Thousands poured into Ouagadougou's squares, chanting, Burkina Faso hookah. The land belongs to the people. The air buzzed with pride, defiance, and hope. For the first time in generations, the nation felt united, its destiny in its own hands, but the world did not stand still. Within a week, Western sanctions hit hard. Banks severed ties with Burkina Faso. The IMF formally froze loan agreements. International media painted Traoré as a reckless radical, a dangerous upstart threatening global markets. In the palace, Traoré gathered his inner circle. Economy Minister Issa Diop's brow was furrowed. Our dollar reserves are dwindling, he said. Imports are stalling. The people may soon struggle to access basic goods. We anticipated this, Traoré replied. Our food independence program has been running for 3 years. Our farmers now produce 80% of our staple needs. We are not as vulnerable as they think. Defense Minister Yakuba Ouedraogo spoke next, his voice grave. French intelligence is arming opposition groups in the north. We've detected movements in several regions. Traoré's eyes narrowed. We've strengthened our military and educated our people. If necessary, we will defend every village, every street. The next day, Burkina Faso signed trade agreements with Russia and Brazil. A Chinese consortium, independent of Dragon Minerals, offered to build a lithium processing facility. Turkey pledged mining equipment and technical support. We need time, Traoré told his people in a radio address. In 3 months, the first lithium from Blue Diamond will reach global markets. Until then, we stand together. Support poured in from across Africa. Mali, Guinea, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and South Africa issued statements affirming Burkina Faso's sovereign rights. A movement dubbed the Traoré model gained traction, especially among African youth. Social media exploded with hashtags like #OurBlueDiamonds and #AfricaRises, trending globally. The world was watching, and Burkina Faso was no longer a footnote in global affairs. 3 weeks later, crisis struck. General Boucar, a disgruntled military officer with ties to French intelligence, launched a coup attempt. At midnight, his unit surrounded the presidential palace, but Traoré's intelligence network had anticipated the move. Within hours, the coup was quashed, the plotters detained. National television broadcast footage of Boucar in custody, alongside documents revealing French funding for the operation. The revelation ignited outrage. Crowds filled the streets, chanting, "Death to traitor Boucar." Traoré, however, chose a different path. In a live broadcast, he sat across from Boucar, his demeanor calm but piercing. "General," he said, "I do not seek your punishment but your truth. Why did you betray your country?" Boucar, trembling, confessed. "The French offered me 5 million euros. A villa in Europe. A new life. And what of Burkina Faso's independence?" Traoré asked. "What is the value of your people's future?" Boucar bowed his head, silent. Traoré turned to the camera. "This is how the West controls Africa, by exploiting our weaknesses, turning brother against brother. But we will not be divided." The broadcast resonated far beyond Burkina Faso's borders. Even in Western capitals, citizens began questioning their government's roles in such schemes. France denied involvement, but the evidence was damning. The coup attempt, meant to destabilize Traoré, only strengthened his resolve and his people's loyalty. For 6 months, the economic siege continued. Shortages of imported goods, medicine, fuel, electronics, tested the nation's resilience. Prices soared, and small protests erupted in Ouagadougou's poorer districts. Every evening, Traoré addressed the nation, his voice a steady anchor. "Freedom has a price," he said, "but it is far less than the cost of centuries of exploitation." Then, a shift. The global lithium market tightened as electric vehicle manufacturers faced supply shortages. Prices skyrocketed, making blue diamonds reserves more valuable than ever. Traoré seized the moment, hosting a press conference open to the world. "Burkina Faso welcomes fair trade," he declared. "But we will never surrender control of our resources." Volkswagen, desperate for lithium, signed a landmark deal, agreeing to build a technical training center in Burkina Faso in exchange for supply. Tesla, Ford, and Toyota followed, each forced to negotiate on Traoré's terms. The Blue Diamond mine, however, faced challenges. Technical issues, aging equipment, inexperienced staff, logistical bottlenecks, slowed production. Traoré spent long nights at the mine, working alongside engineers to troubleshoot problems. One evening, as he pored over reports in his makeshift office at the mine, a knock came at the door. Konate, an elderly miner with weathered hands and a lifetime of stories, stepped inside. "Mr. President," he said, his voice soft but firm, "I need to speak with you." Traoré gestured to a chair. "Konate, I owe you much. My father spoke of you often." Konate's eyes drifted to the window, where the mine's floodlights illuminated the night. "My father worked here, too. And his father before him. For 3 generations, we've given this land's wealth to foreigners. You've changed that, but it's not enough." Traoré leaned forward, intrigued. Konate produced a worn notebook, its pages filled with names. "These are the workers who died, fell ill, or were disabled in this mine over the last 30 years, he said. "Their families deserve justice." Traoré flipped through the pages, his heart heavy with the weight of hundreds of lives. "What do you propose?" he asked. "A fund," Konate said. "Use the mine's profits to provide health insurance, education, scholarships, pensions for miners and their families." Traoré nodded. "You're right. Taking back the mine is only the beginning. We must ensure its wealth serves our people." The next day, he convened his cabinet and established the Miners' Justice Fund, allocating 15% of Blue Diamond's revenue to support workers and their families. The move was met with cheers from the mine's employees, who saw in Traoré a leader who understood their struggles. 8 months after the nationalization, the tide turned. The IMF and World Bank, under pressure from shifting global dynamics, lifted their sanctions. Western banks resumed dealings with Burkina Faso, but on new terms. The Blue Diamond model became a blueprint for resource-rich nations, ensuring majority control remained with the host country. Around the mine, a new community took shape. Modern housing, schools, and a hospital rose from the red earth, serving over 2,000 workers and their families. Burkina Faso's first lithium processing facility, built with Chinese and Russian expertise, began operations, training local engineers in cutting-edge techniques. The Blue Diamond Technical Academy opened its doors, welcoming students from across Africa to study mining and technology. One morning, Traoré visited the mine with a group of academy students. "This is no longer just a mine," he told them, gesturing to the sprawling complex. "It is a symbol of our independence, our future." The students toured the lithium extraction units, diamond processing facilities, and quality control labs, their eyes wide with possibility. An elderly worker approached Traoré, his face lined with years of labor. "Mr. President, I have something to show you." He led Traoré to an old section of the mine, where a small monument stood at the site of a 1994 collapse. Engraved on it were the names of workers who had perished, including Amara Traoré, Ibrahim's father. "We built this," the worker said. "So we never forget." Traoré touched his father's name, tears welling in his eyes. "Thank you," he whispered. That day, a ceremony marked the export of Blue Diamond's first processed lithium batch, valued at $500 million. Traoré addressed the crowd, including international journalists. "Today, we export not just a mineral but our dignity, our independence, and our right to shape our destiny." A year later, Traoré stood at his father's grave, surrounded by the first graduates of the Blue Diamond Technical Academy. "My father left me a blue diamond," he told them, "but his true legacy was the belief that our land's wealth belongs to us." A young miner stepped forward, presenting Traoré with a ring crafted from a diamond extracted from the vein where his father had worked. "This is for you," the miner said. "Every worker's family now has health insurance and education scholarships. No child will grow up without a future." Traoré slipped the ring onto his finger, its weight a reminder of his promise. That same day, the Amara Traoré lithium processing plant opened, Africa's first full-capacity facility of its kind. Leaders from across the continent attended, hailing Burkina Faso as a beacon of possibility. The ripple effects were profound. Nigeria nationalized its oil reserves, the Democratic Republic of Congo its cobalt mines, South Africa its platinum deposits. The Traoré model became a rallying cry for economic sovereignty. At an African Union summit, Traoré urged his peers, "Our resources can change our destiny, but only if we process them and offer their value to the world." 5 years later, Traoré was invited to London for an international mining conference. The Western media, once quick to vilify him, now called him a visionary. Robert Wilson, the former Liberty Resources CEO, approached him, extending a hand. "President Traoré, it's an honor. 5 years ago, I didn't understand your vision. Now I do." Traoré smiled. "Thank you for saying so, Mr. Wilson. Better late than never." His presentation, the Burkina Faso model for sustainable mining, captivated the audience. Burkina Faso had transformed. Ouagadougou's skyline gleamed with modern buildings, while rural areas boasted new schools, hospitals, and clean water systems. The nation's GDP had tripled, child mortality had halved, and literacy had soared from 40% to 75%. The Blue Diamond Mine was now a hub of education and innovation, training Africa's next generation. One quiet morning, Traoré visited his father's grave alone. He removed the blue diamond ring and placed it on the tombstone. "Your mission is complete, father," he said softly. "Blue Diamond belongs to our people. All our wealth, all our dreams, belong to us." That night, he stood on the palace balcony, gazing at Ouagadougou's glittering lights. In his hand, he held the blue diamond his father had given him decades ago. "Do you see, father?" he whispered. "We're building a nation you could only dream of." The lights of the Blue Diamond Mine shone in the distance, a testament to a wealth no longer plundered but harnessed for a people's future. Traoré's journey, from a miner's son to a leader who reshaped a continent, was far from over.